I'm Will Aubrey. Time for another edition of the Improbability Engine, and my buddy Joe Darnell is here with me. And we start, as always, with our moment of what?
Do you want to lead off? I've got one.
I've got one.
Lead off. I'm ready to hear yours.
I turned the TV on last night.
Never a good sign, but okay.
Saw a chyron on the TV, and I immediately said...
For those who don't know, that's the scrolling information bar that rolls across the bottom of the screen.
Basically, any kind of subheading or...
Yeah.
So, anyway, I saw a chyron, and I said, "Oh, my God!" And my wife said, "What?" And I said, "The Cavs just traded Kyrie Irving to the Celtics." And she said, "Oh." Clearly not understanding the importance of it.
But did you tell her that it was for Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, and a first-round pick from 2018 that could be top three, a non-lottery protected first-round pick? I know her. That would have gotten her. She would have gone, "Oh, well, there's a pick thrown in. Okay, that's doing something." That's pretty interesting, if you ask me. When I saw that trade went down, I was honestly, I was kind of surprised the Cavs got that much for him.
Because he clearly wants to leave.
He clearly wants to leave. It's one of those where...
You know, I had thought they would have been better off just keeping him and getting through the year and making another run at a championship. And I had pretty much come to the conclusion that they were not going to trade him. So I was shocked when I saw the trade announced last night.
And it was fast.
You know, it's like, though, there was a time a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, where I was sitting there and Marilyn said, "You've got a very serious, troubled look on your face. What are you thinking about?" And I said, "The New England Patriots." And she couldn't believe that either. So there's just a disconnect there. What's your moment of what?
Well, I was actually reading in the news this week as well, something I advise against in most cases, but something caught my eye. On the shore of England, giant pipes were washing ashore, and I mean giant pipes. These things were 8 feet in diameter, and the longest one was a 1/4 mile long. Pipes washing up on shore. Now,
what kind of a giant would smoke one of those?
I don't know, and I don't want to ask what happened with that. Sure, there's going to be some sort of through the looking glass Lewis Carroll kind of reference that we could put together on that one. No, apparently
concrete pipes.
They were a rubber-ish type thing. They were being towed to Algeria. For what purpose, I don't know. But they were being towed by a ship, and some of them broke loose and have been washing up on shore throughout Europe. Now, I don't know who's in charge of that boat, but if you've got 1/4 mile long pipes that you're pulling behind you, and you don't look behind you every now and again to make sure they're still with you, that's a problem.
Indeed.
So that was my moment of what? Oh my gosh.
Well, let's start by previewing the game on Friday between the Calloway County Lakers and the Murray High Tigers at Stewart Stadium.
The Crosstown Classic,
as it has been dubbed. And Callaway beat Murray last year, 13-2.
Over the course of 2 days, if I recall correctly.
And so this year's game will kick off at 7 o'clock at Stewart Stadium on Friday evening. You can listen to all the action on 89.7 FM WAAJ, and you can go on TuneIn and search for WAAJ and find the broadcast. For once, and, well, it's actually going to be a recurring thing, but it's the first time in years you won't be doing the games with me. Troy Webb will be.
Yeah, and I'm glad I found somebody who could do a good job. Coach Webb is he's great. He's fantastic on the air. He's smart. He's knowledgeable. He takes it seriously, and I think he's a pretty good foil for you on air. I think that's important. That's a very important factor into.
We'll go on with our pregame coverage at 6:40 p.m. But previewing the game, it's difficult really to know what to expect. Calloway has not played a real game yet. They've had two scrimmages. Murray played Graves County and got beat 40-24. Did not play particularly well.
Was not as close as the score would probably indicate.
I think it was maybe 33-0 at halftime.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. There were some positives for it if you're a Murray High fan. Running back Chase Maris, 28 carries, 178 yards, 3 touchdowns. Hunter Utley, the young quarterback, went 14 of 33, 42% for 162 yards. A blemish there. He had 2 interceptions. That makes sense if you're playing from behind.
And how odd is it, just in terms of what we usually expect from Murray High, to see them throw 33 times?
Well, and you know, flashback to last year's Crosstown Classic, it was odd because you expect the Lakers to come in and throw the ball a lot and the Tigers to come in and run the ball a lot. In that game, the Tigers threw the ball a ton, and the Lakers were on the ground most of the time. With Darius Stribling and guys like that, you watch those teams. It's like they outthought each other with the Lakers coming out on top. This is a little different. This is one that's a little odd to me, is to see them be quite as balanced as they are. I think though that they're going to try to run the ball. They're going to live and die by what they do on the ground. So, I mean, I expect them to try to come out early and establish the run against the Lakers and kind of challenge the Lakers to stop them, you know, and that's going to be a big thing. Last year, the defense really stepped up in that game. They didn't allow an offensive touchdown or any points on offense, and they were able to force some turnovers that were timely and important and really kept them in the game and made it where they could win. On the offensive side, you're going to be missing out on some guys. You know, you've lost your best wide receiver if you're the Lakers. Well, and on the defensive side, you lost, you know, your number one tackler, and so you've got to make those adjustments as you always do to try to take that next step and find a way to slow down that running game.
If you look at Calloway, their leading rusher last year was quarterback Jacob Bella, and he averaged about 5 yards a carry.
Yes.
Darius Stribling, he's back. Jacob Bella back for his senior year at quarterback. Darius Stribling, he's back. He averaged about 5 yards a carry at running back.
Yep.
Cody Orr, who didn't see a lot of action, is back at running back. He averaged about 5 yards a carry. So we've got a lot of similarities there. Now, Bella only threw the ball 134 times last year.
Right.
So that's an average of about 13 passes per game. And if you look back at what we've seen from Callaway County over the years, they usually throw it quite a bit more often than that. I would not expect any reversion to the mean this year, though.
Yep.
I think they'll probably throw it about as often as they did last year.
Right.
And, you know, Jacob completed 54, I believe, of the 134 passes that he threw last year. He probably needs to increase that percentage of completion.
Well, the biggest thing that's going to slow down this offense for the Lakers is the loss of 2 key players. You lost Jeremiah Malone, the wide receiver, who was a prolific receiver. Even though they didn't throw the ball a lot, he was able to make things happen with his speed, even on, you know, short screens and stuff like that. And then on the line, you lose a guy like Colby Culver, who was kind of the heart and soul of that line. And I'm interested to see what this line comes up with. I want to see what these guys do because offensive and defensive line is not so much individual talent, but collective talent. And that's a big deal.
They do have Kevin Robertson.
That's a big thing to have.
And Kevin is a real threat at wide receiver.
Absolutely.
He's capable of making big plays. He made big plays last year. And so, you know.
He's a Lynn Swan type. He's a guy that if you put the ball up, he's going to come down with it and make a spectacular catch. He's done that throughout his career.
And he has good wheels, too.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the game against Murray, Bella and Robertson hook up and beat Murray deep. I think what it will come down to, though, is which defense can stop the run. If Murray can stop Calloway from running effectively and force them to throw the ball more than they want to, obviously that cuts in the Tigers' favor. And on the other hand, Calloway better be able to contain Maris, because if they can't, it could be a long night.
Yeah, and what the Tigers have shown is Maris was effective, but they're not afraid to go with a few other backs that they've got, and even having Hunter Utley run on his own. It's going to be an interesting thing to see there. The key to stopping the run, if you're the Tigers, is a guy like Victor Hudspeth. Victor Hudspeth is he had himself a good game despite the score against Graves County. A guy that flies around the ball, big and strong, reads plays well. Really does a good job for that defense. So if you're the Laker offense, that's a guy you key up on. Figure out where he's at. Figure out how to get a hat on him. Put a hat on him and just don't let him blow up the plays. Anytime you can do that, if you can pull that off, I think that helps the Lakers. If not, boy, that's going to be a much more difficult situation for the Lakers going forward and hoping for a win.
Okay, I think that pretty much covers the Callaway-Murray game. Are you ready to predict the winner?
Oh, man. It is really difficult without the Lakers having played a game and with the Tigers. I'm going to say the Tigers get revenge this year. I'm going to say 21-7 is the final score.
I'm going to call it Callaway 21-14.
I like where you're at. And now here's the thing. Both defenses are good. It's who's better that night, and that's going to be a big question. I hope the Lakers can pull it out, but I'm afraid the Tigers are just going to figure out a way to run the football.
Let's shift to one more high school sport before we talk about college.
Absolutely.
And we have to talk about Murray High girls soccer. They were an incredible team, among the best in the entire state last year.
Yeah.
And they're very good again this year.
Yep.
They beat Mayfield 11-0
That
to
was a game,
advance to the final of the All-A.
Yeah, that game is a little misleading because they stopped it at halftime. They did not play a second half. It was 11-0 in the first half, and they mercy ruled it and said it was over. That Tiger team scored a goal in the first 10 seconds. I mean, they are that good. And honestly, I honestly think they have a chance to win All-A and be a force at the state level. I mean, they're that talented. They've got speed, they've got size, they've got poise, all the things you want to have out of a soccer team, and they're really, really, really good. And
they've got a Laker as their coach,
Shauna
Traylor.
Only way to do it. That's how you have to have it. You've got to have some Laker going for you.
She was Shauna Wicker when she played at Callaway. She played soccer, she played basketball, and she was a good basketball player for the Lakers, but she was a great soccer player.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely was. And the coaching side of it is important because it stabilizes a ship. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world. If the coaching doesn't mesh, then you have problems. You can just see that they're in good hands over in Tigertown. That's just how that works.
Staying with soccer,
yeah,
the Murray State soccer team is very good yet again.
Absolutely.
They've had 2 consecutive undefeated regular seasons in the Ohio Valley Conference. They're picked to win it again this year. They've started undefeated, and they're about to go on the road after starting with a couple of victories at home. And Jeremy Groves has just done a phenomenal job with the Racers.
Well, and at this point, the name that everybody should know is Harriet Withers, the Australian player who, quite honestly, just does amazing stuff. I mean, she could have 3 defenders on her, and she does stuff. She scored what in soccer parlance is called a brace. She scored 2 goals in the opening win of the regular season, despite drawing all kinds of attention from the defenders. And this is a very exciting time if you like watching the racers be successful in soccer, because I'm here to tell you they are really, really good.
It's a cool atmosphere over there. I would encourage people to go watch the racers play.
Play on the hill. It's great. It's wonderful. This time of year, it's really nice.
There's a difference, though, between soccer fans and basketball fans.
There are a couple.
My wife takes pictures at games, okay? Yeah. And she takes pictures of fans as well as pictures of players and coaches.
Absolutely.
At basketball games, lots of smiling fans, okay?
Right.
At soccer games, the fans are too intent watching the game to be posing for the camera and smile. They just are, and
the game never stops. I mean, from the time the ball's kicked, it's like watching the Kentucky Derby. You don't dare look away because you never know what you're going to miss, and so. You might smile and let up at halftime, or you're smiling before the game, but while the ball's in play, oh man, everything is just focused on the game. It's fantastic. I really like that.
And departing from soccer, talking about football, Murray State gets underway in about 10 days.
Yeah, and they've released their first game depth chart. Some surprises. Nothing. I don't really want to read too much into it, just because it's this time of year, and the first game is against Kentucky Wesleyan?
Yes.
Game? So Mario McGraw is listed as second on the depth chart, which is a surprise to me after what he did last year. However, this is probably more along the lines of let's build some depth and use this as a functional practice, as opposed to as opposed to trying to do something a little differently where you start all your starters and everything goes out. Starting quarterback is listed as Shyler Bentley, the transfer from Old Dominion, redshirt junior. You know what? Not a surprise. You kind of expect a D1 transfer to come in and push for starting time. I mean, you would almost think that. Some injuries in the offseason, as there often are, but nothing major at this point. The wide receiving core looks fantastic, led by Jordan Gandy and Jonathan Moss. Some size on the offensive line, which is nice to see. But, nothing that stands out as being a major issue. Cam Carter starting as a sophomore as the right tackle for the Racers at 6'6", 280. That might be listed as a surprise, but as young as this team was last year, and they were very, very young, it's good to see them progressing upwards, and you start seeing that experience taking over as they continue on. Lots of sophomores on the starting defense. So, I mean, it's always good to see those guys.
And they have a great deal for tickets. And in order to take advantage of it, though, you have to buy the tickets before the end of August. Tickets for 4 people to each of the 5 home games, $49. It's an incredible deal.
You can't beat that at all. I mean,
no.
that's a great.
It's like $2 a ticket, and I think you get free popcorn.
Well, you had me before, but quite frankly, if you give me free popcorn, I'm ready to go anywhere. You know what I mean? I've often said that, if there was ever a problem where someone was trying to get me into an unmarked van, the offer of free snacks would probably make me think about it, even though it's wrong and you shouldn't do that. And you shouldn't take, food and candy from strangers. I'd think about it.
They put such an emphasis on that in schools when my children were little.
Mm-hmm.
We were walking from where we lived on Poplar Street. This is back in the late 80s. We were walking from where we lived on Poplar Street over to Murray Middle to play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody pulled up, and they stopped, and they asked me for directions. I gave them directions, and they drove off. And my daughter said, "Dad, did you know that was a stranger?"
And It's strange to think about that, but we live pretty isolated lives now compared to what we did, when I was, probably prior to my childhood. It wouldn't have been unusual. I mean, as a kid, I used to be stopped and asked for directions, even though I didn't really know where anything was. They're like, well, I'm looking for such and such. It's like, well, maybe it's that way if you go that way and take a right. But, we're really lucky to be in this community where it is pretty safe. I mean, it's a good spot to be in. But you're right, that is the idea of someone stopping and asking, boy, that would be, you don't need to talk to them. That's a stranger. Don't talk to strangers. That's never what you do.
Yeah. University of Louisville gets started in a couple of weeks as well. They're ranked 16th in the nation to start the season, and they have the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. I'm not sure. I think the reason they're ranked as low as 16th is the way they finished last season.
I think that's probably
they collapsed at the end of the year. They can't let that happen again. This needs to be a big year for them. They're picked third in the ACC. We'll see how it turns out. Kentucky, as usual, is picked near the bottom of the SEC East.
Nothing new there.
Nothing new there. They've had a couple of players get hurt. One was a starting offensive lineman tore his ACL, and I think the other's a cornerback. I'm not,
And injuries happen. You've got to be able to deal with that. The U of L rankings kind of surprised me. And I think you're absolutely right. It's all about which team are you talking about. Because if it's the U of L team that played Florida State, that team was awesome. I mean, in every sense of the word, you watch them and you're just in awe of what they could do. But you're right, that team that lost to Kentucky at the end of the year didn't look anything like. I mean, it's the same team, but they didn't look even similar, which makes sense. But I think they're probably underrated. I would say that they're a dark horse contender for the ACC crown. I think that's probably true. They've certainly got the talent.
Now, here's something that's shocking to me.
Yeah.
I've actually seen some preseason rankings that have Western Kentucky in the top 25. What in the world's going on?
Well, you have AP voters from all over the place, and some people just put stuff on their ballots. I don't get it. I personally don't. I've yet to see much out of the Hilltopper football program that has been nationally noteworthy. I mean, from a regional standpoint, sure. Then them in Middle Tennessee have been good, especially for the level that they're at. That's good. They go to bowl games, but none of it says national relevance, really.
I agree.
I don't get it. I think that's somebody projecting a little bit, maybe hopeful, wishful thinking kind of stuff.
Anything else on sports?
Oh, this is a very fun time. Football's about to start up.
I do have a note on college basketball.
Oh, what do you have?
CBS
okay.
interviewed over 100 coaches and asked them who their pick was to win this year's NCAA championship. And
Murray State.
No.
Oh, damn.
40% said Arizona. They had Arizona number 1.
Okay.
They had Louisville number 5. Kentucky not in the top 5.
That's not surprising. At this point, you don't even know what Kentucky has. I mean, the one thing, and I'm sure I'm gonna irritate some Kentucky fans by saying this, but you can't turn over your roster and expect to be preseason top anything. I mean, those guys were playing high school ball last year. I have no idea what they're going to do. None whatsoever. For every John Wall, there's an Alex Legion. That's how that works. So, at this point, kind of water off the duck's back, just let it roll, it'll be fine. I did see that there's a national writer who is ranking mid-major players by position. Jonathan Stark was his number 2 point guard in the mid-major level in the nation. I think that's underrated, but I'm a homer, and I said as much. Looking at what he can do, just looking at his stats, at 21 points a game, 5.5 assists, and honestly, I do expect those numbers to go down but I expect his percentages to stay good and high. I think this year's team is going to be better than last year's team. I think the roster works a little bit better. We were unbalanced last year. We had a lot of guys on the perimeter, not a lot of guys in the post. We've addressed that in recruiting. I'm really impressed with what the coaching staff has done, and I'm excited to see him start. I mean, quite frankly. But I think I would bet to see, maybe 16, 17, 18 points a game, but I expect assist numbers to go up 5, 6.
I think he better score at least 20 a game, or we've got serious problems.
I would bet that there's going to be some more scoring help. I look for Miller to take not a big leap because he was awful dang good last year, but I expect Miller's percentages to go up, and I expect to see Dupree's scoring to go up a lot. He showed me a lot.
Do you think he's going to start in the middle?
He would be my pick at
Okay.
this point. At the 5.
Who's your pick at the 2?
Honestly, my gut tells me that it's going to be Hawkins.
Okay.
Now that's a little misleading because Hawkins is a point guard, but I think what that gives you is the flexibility to during a game run Stark to the 2.
Okay.
Which will help him a lot. You'll be able to have him play as a decoy, running around, drawing defensive pressure, and then if you need him to, he can always take the ball.
So you think Stark, Hawkins, Miller, Dupree, who's the 3?
At this point, I'm still thinking Buchanan. I don't.
Okay. You always have to think, if you're bringing in a junior college guy, that you're bringing him in to start. Otherwise, why bother?
Right, and this is a guy who was a junior college All-American, was invited to junior college All-Star games. Physically, he looks the part. I mean, this is a guy who's big and strong. He's not 6'8", but he's big and strong. His frame is built. He looks like a junior in college. Has shown the ability to score at all 3 levels. Maybe not the greatest shooter at that position. I think we could probably find somebody who could shoot a little bit better, but quite honestly, if he can get to the basket, you know what I mean? Who cares? If you can rebound your position and defend your position and score at a high enough clip, I think you'll be fine. I think Buchanan gets that.
I think Anthony Smith's the first guy off the bench.
I think that's probably right. Anthony Smith is one of those guys, we didn't know a whole lot about him whenever he first signed. We were like, well, this guy's comes out of the D.C. area, goes to JUCO in Kansas, is good but not spectacular. The reports I've heard from him, from people around who've seen him play pickup and watched him play, he's just one of those guys. He's like Jeff McClain. You look at him, you go, well, he's not big enough, he's not strong enough, he's not athletic enough, he's not whatever. But then you look down and he's got solid stats, and he's doing all the stuff you need him to do. I mean,
he reminds me of a poor man's Cuthbert Victor. Mick Cronin described Victor as a try-hard guy.
Yes.
And I think that would be a good description for Anthony Smith. Now, he doesn't have Victor's hops.
Right.
That's why I said poor man's Cuthbert Victor.
Right. And that's not a knock on Anthony. I think, and the reason I bring up a guy like McClain, I don't think their physical stature is even close. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm talking about is a guy whose number one asset is ability and desire to do the stuff that you need to do to be successful. So you look at Jeff McClain. Jeff McClain was not big enough to play posts at the Division I level. He really wasn't. Wasn't athletic enough. Didn't have the ball skill set. But worked his tail off on the glass, worked his tail off on defense, and kind of just did the stuff every day, that blue-collar work that you've got to have. Personally, I thought Jeff McClain was a mule that carried that team a lot of times.
I'm going to take my mother's advice and not say anything about Jeff McClain. So
I like Jeff McClain, and you can fight me. You can at me. Somebody find me on Twitter and talk. I am a Jeff McClain fan. That dude was awesome. He was my favorite player on that team. On a great racer team, might I add. He was my favorite player.
Anything else?
Oh man, NFL football's winding up. NBA basketball's still far away. It's a good time to be. It's a good time to be a sports fan.
And that brings to a close this edition of the Improbability Engine.